I stepped out of the jet in my navy blue blazer, heels clicking against the tarmac, holding my daughter Nora's tiny hand. Her curls bounced as she looked around in awe, clutching her little backpack shaped like a unicorn. Behind us, the sleek black SUV waited, but my eyes were fixed on the two stunned faces standing at the edge of the private airfield. My parents, Judith and Franklin Whitmore, the same people who told me I was a disgrace. The same mother who slapped me and screamed, "Get out and never come back," when I dared to say no to her plan. And now here I was, 11 years later, CEO of a rising tech company, mother to a beautiful daughter, and the owner of my own damn plane. I didn't come back to show off. I came back because my daughter deserves to know where she comes from. And maybe, just maybe, I needed them to see who I've become. Without them. Their jaws slackened as I approached. Franklin blinked first. "Charlotte?" Judith clutched her pearl necklace like it might protect her from the truth. "This is Nora," I said calmly. "Your granddaughter." For a moment, the wind carried silence between us. Then Nora waved, completely unaware of the storm that brewed in the past. "You see, I didn't need revenge. I already won. By choosing myself. By surviving when they thought I'd fall. And now, to every woman who's been made to feel small, invisible, or unworthy, you don't need their approval to be extraordinary." Drop a comment if you've ever had to walk away from something toxic just to find your real power. Hit that subscribe button if you believe no one, not even family, has the right to control your life. Your story matters, just like mine. Growing up in the Whitmore household meant living in a glass museum, beautiful on the outside, suffocating on the inside. Charleston, South Carolina, was postcard perfect. Southern charm oozed from every street corner, but inside our Georgian-style home, it was all about image. My mother, Judith, was a former Catholic school teacher-turned-community socialite. She wore her pearls like armor and ran our household with a cold, efficient precision. Everything had to be spotless. Everything had to be planned. And God help you if you ever embarrassed her in public. My father, Franklin, a municipal judge, was no better, quiet, composed, and utterly absent from the emotional battlefield. His love came in the form of rules. Sit up straight. Speak when spoken to. Be a Whitmore, not a problem. From the age of 5, I was enrolled in etiquette school. Ballet followed, then violin. I wasn't asked what I liked. Just handed a schedule and told, "This is who you are." I remember asking for a soccer ball one Christmas. I got a Bible and a pearl bracelet instead. The pressure intensified during high school. Straight A's weren't praised. They were expected. I was valedictorian, captain of the debate team, and the face of our church youth group. But none of it was enough. Not when I started to ask questions. Not when I said I wanted to study software engineering. Judith lost it. "Women in tech are just sad little girls trying to play with the boys," she snapped. "You'll be a doctor, like Dr. Sanders' daughter. That's the kind of girl who gets respect." Worse came when she introduced me to Thomas Caldwell, the pastor's son. He was 26. I was 17. They'd known each other since birth. "He's responsible, respected. And he's been watching you," my mother said with a knowing smirk. Thomas, he gave me chills. Polished on the surface, but something about him felt wrong. His compliments were laced with control. "I like girls who don't argue. You'd look prettier if you smiled more. I'll take care of you. You won't need to think." I was a trophy to be claimed, and my parents were eager to hand me over. I started hiding. My laptop became my escape. I taught myself to code using free online tutorials. I built small websites. I dreamed about Silicon Valley. I read stories of women who built companies from scratch and swore I'd be one of them. One night, I overheard my parents discussing my engagement to Thomas like it was a real estate deal. "She'll be set for life," my mother said. He already promised to get her into med school. "She's 17, Judith," my father said, barely whispering. "She's a Whitmore," she snapped. "We decide what's best for her." That was the night something inside me cracked. I wasn't their doll. I wasn't their property. I was Charlotte Whitmore, and I was going to write my own story. The day Thomas Caldwell showed up at our house with a bouquet of red roses and a smug grin, I knew it was my final test. I was sitting at the dining table, working on a JavaScript project I had built from scratch. A small app that tracked local food pantry supplies. Something that actually mattered. But when my mother saw him step out of his Mercedes, she yanked the laptop cord from the wall and hissed, "Get that nonsense off the table. He's here." She made me change into a pale yellow dress that made me look like a pastel ghost. "Modest, but feminine," she said, zipping it up like a corset of expectations. "You want to make a good impression?" I didn't. Dinner was unbearable. Thomas dominated the conversation, casually dropping donors, quoting scripture, and tossing compliments that landed like darts. "Your daughter's grown into quite the young lady," he told my father, never once addressing me directly, but she still has that fiery streak. I like a challenge. I clenched my fists under the table. After dessert, my mother insisted I walk him to his car. It's the polite thing to do. The outside, the air was thick with summer humidity and tension. I stood with my arms crossed, praying he'd just leave. But instead, he leaned in, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear without asking. "You'll be beautiful in white," he whispered. "I've already picked the church." That was it. I stepped back, my voice trembling but firm. "I'm not marrying you." He laughed like I'd told a joke. "Charlotte, don't be dramatic. Our parents already agreed. This is bigger than feelings." "No. This is about me." And I said no. His smile faded. "You'll regret this." I didn't wait to hear more. I ran inside, my breath shallow, my heart pounding like a war drum. My mother was waiting by the door. "What did you do?" she snapped. "I told him no," I said, straightening my spine. "I'm not marrying him. I'm not going to med school. And I'm not living a life that's not mine." Her face twisted into something I had never seen before. Pure, unfiltered rage. "You ungrateful little girl," she seethed. "Everything we've done, every sacrifice, we built your future, and you just threw it away." "I'm building my own future." Her hand flew before I could react. The slap rang out like thunder, echoing through the foyer. My cheek burned, but I didn't cry. "Get out," she said through clenched teeth. "Pack your things. If you're too good for this family, you don't get to be part of it." My father stood silently nearby, the same blank expression he always wore when things got messy. "Franklin," I pleaded, "say something." He opened his mouth, closed it, then walked away. I went upstairs, grabbed my laptop, a few clothes, my charger, and a small stash of cash I'd hidden behind a book. I shoved it all into my backpack and came back down. It was raining outside. Of course it was. My mother stood by the door, arms crossed. She didn't even flinch as I passed her. "Where will you go?" she asked coldly. "No one will take you in. I'll figure it out." The door shut behind me with a finality that cracked something deep inside me. I stood on the porch, soaked to the skin, my cheek still stinging, and realized I had nothing. And I had never felt more free. My best friend, Tasha, answered my call on the second ring. "Come to my place." "Now," she said. No questions, no judgment. She and her mom let me crash on their couch. I enrolled in community college using my savings and picked up a part-time job fixing phones at a local shop. At night, I coded until my eyes burned. Tasha's mom slipped me sandwiches before bed and told me, "You've got fire in you, girl. Don't let it go out." There were nights I almost gave up. Nights I looked at my cracked phone screen, thumb hovering over my father's number. I could have crawled back, said sorry, pretended to be who they wanted. But every time, I remembered Thomas's hand on my face, my mother's slap, my father's silence, and I kept going. The first night away from home, I didn't sleep. Not really. Tasha and her mom lived in a tiny two-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. Their couch smelled like lavender and fabric softener, and the AC rattled with every gust. But it was warm, safe, and the silence didn't come with expectations or judgment. Still, I lay there staring at the ceiling, my backpack tucked under my arm like a security blanket, wondering what the hell I'd just done. By sunrise, I made 2 promises: I wouldn't crawl back, and I wouldn't waste the chance I had to start over. The next few weeks were chaos. I enrolled in Midland's technical college with the few documents I'd managed to grab. Thanks to online scholarships and an emergency grant for displaced students, I got in. Not Berkeley, not MIT, but it was a start. I worked 3 jobs, morning shifts at a tech repair shop, evening babysitting gigs, and weekend cleaning offices. Every spare hour went into coding. I rebuilt my pantry app. I joined online hackathons. I read every startup blog I could find. I watched videos about venture capital with a notepad and a dollar store pen. I was exhausted, and I was alive. One rainy Wednesday, while mopping the floor at a local co-working space, I noticed the Wi-Fi had crashed. The front desk girl was panicking. Some investor was trying to pitch over Zoom. "I can fix it," I offered. She blinked. Aren't you just janitorial staff?" "I'm a lot of things," I said and crouched under the desk. 5 minutes later, the Wi-Fi rebooted. The call resumed. Everyone cheered, except one woman in a Navy power suit who stood by the espresso machine, arms crossed, watching me with razor-sharp eyes. Denise Harper, CTO of a rising health tech startup. I didn't know who she was at the time. Just that her stare made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt since ever. "You studying IT?" she asked. "Software engineering. Mostly back-end work. Still learning front-end frameworks." She raised an eyebrow. "You speak like a dev. You have a portfolio?" "Yes, ma'am." "Send it to me." She slid a business card across the counter. "We're looking for interns. No pay, but full access. You interested?" I emailed her that night. 3 days later, I was sitting in a glass office building, working on a bug in their patient portal system. It paid in experience, mentorship, and free lunch, which I appreciated more than I admitted. I soaked everything in. Denise was tough, brilliant, and took no prisoners. She cursed like a sailor and expected twice the results in half the time. But when I presented a cleaner API solution to her, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're not just smart, you're dangerous." In the best way. I cried in the bathroom afterward. Not because I was sad, but because no one had ever said that to me. For the first time, someone believed I could build something. 6 months in, she introduced me to venture building. How to structure equity, how to pitch, how to write cold emails that didn't sound desperate. "Charlotte," she said, "you don't need to be grateful. You need to be relentless. Being underestimated is your weapon. Use it." I did. When I finally launched my own platform, a cloud-based data tool for small clinics to manage patient flow, Denise was my first beta tester. The platform flopped, but she didn't pull back. She made me list every reason why it failed and redesign the onboarding flow. Version 2 went live. It didn't flop. The third version caught attention. A VC firm in Atlanta offered a seed round. I was 22, living in a 1-bedroom apartment with mismatched furniture, still eating ramen 3 nights a week. But I was CEO of a real legal company, and I hadn't spoken to my parents in 4 years. Not a text, not a call, not even a Facebook birthday message. I'd be lying if I said I didn't check their profiles now and then. My mother still posted photos of charity galas. My father's LinkedIn showed he was still a judge, but no mention of a daughter. They erased me. And somehow, I rose anyway. That's the thing about freedom. It hurts like hell at first. But once you taste it, there's no going back. Every holiday season that passed without them, I replaced with new traditions, Friendsgiving with Tasha and her family, New Year's coding marathons, Valentine's Day hackathons. I built a new life, piece by piece. And eventually I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. But I'd never forget that night. The rain, the slap, the silence. It didn't break me. It built me. Denise Harper didn't just give me a shot, she gave me a future. Most people saw a girl with second-hand clothes and a used laptop. Denise saw potential wrapped in stubbornness and caffeine. She had a sixth sense for spotting scrappy talent, and I was practically radiating desperation and determination. The more I worked under her, the more I realized she was the antithesis of every woman I'd been told to admire growing up. She didn't smile to please people. She didn't dress to impress men. She walked into rooms and owned them. "Don't ever shrink," she told me one night as we worked late debugging a crash in the patient intake module. "Make space. And when they try to push you out, take more." Denise started inviting me to strategy meetings, even though I was technically still an intern. She let me shadow sales calls, study UX reviews, and dissect marketing data. I watched her pitch to boardrooms full of middle-aged investors like she was daring them to underestimate her. And when I started making suggestions that actually worked, she stopped calling me intern. She started calling me partner. At 23, with her blessing and a 15,000 check she called early angel faith, I launched my own company. It wasn't glamorous. I worked out of a co-working space and sometimes coded in borrowed office corners. My startup, Novametrics, was a data analysis tool for independent healthcare providers. It wasn't sexy, but it was smart, scalable, and personal. I knew what it was like to not have access to good care, and I wanted to fix that. First year, brutal. I cried in public twice. Lost 2 major clients because I underpriced. Got ghosted by a funder after flying to pitch in person. But every time I thought I might call it quits, Denise would text me, "You done crying? Good. Now fix it." And I would. By the second year, we'd broken even. I hired my first 2 employees. Tasha came on as head of operations. She was always better with logistics than I was. I hired a designer off Reddit who turned out to be a branding genius, and we started getting traction. By the 3rd year, we had real users. Testimonials. Word of mouth. Then came the Inc. 5000 list. Small mention, big impact. Suddenly, people cared. That's when he showed up, not Thomas. Someone better. Julian Nguyen was the CTO of a wellness app we were looking to partner with. First time we met, I was knee-deep in debugging our server load and hadn't slept in 36 hours. "Charlotte Whitmore," he said, extending his hand with a calm smile. "I've read your API documentation. It's shockingly clean." I blinked. "Thanks, I think." He chuckled. "That's a compliment. You should see most of what I deal with." Our partnership started with tech, but it turned into conversations, and conversations turned into dinners, and dinners turned into long walks and quiet moments, and the kind of laughter that made you forget the world ever told you not to dream. Julian didn't try to fix me. He didn't want to mold me. He asked questions, respected my boundaries, and reminded me what it felt like to be seen, not managed. The night I told him about the slap, the rain, and the porch, he just held my hand. "I'm not here to save you," he said. "You already did that. I just want to walk beside you now." I fell in love, slowly, honestly, without fear. We didn't rush into anything. Too many scars, too many memories. But when we found out I was pregnant, I didn't panic. I paused, and then I smiled. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel trapped by someone else's expectations. I was building something, my business, my family, my legacy, on my terms. When Nora was born, it was like seeing a blank canvas and knowing I'd never let anyone else pick the colors. She had Julian's eyes and my defiant scowl. Nurses said she came out screaming like she had something to say. I took it as a good sign. Those early months were chaos. Midnight feedings between client calls. Diaper bags stuffed with wireframes. I turned a storage room into a nursery at the office, and my team adjusted like champions. Julian adjusted too. He cut back his hours, took morning shifts, and on the nights I couldn't keep my eyes open, he'd whisper, "I've got her. You sleep." I never expected softness from a man, not after what I'd seen, but Julian gave it freely, no strings, no scorecards. Denise became Nora's unofficial grandmother. She'd show up unannounced with snacks, books, and unsolicited advice about baby-proofing the office. "We're raising a warrior," she'd say. "Better start early." One night, after tucking Nora in, I sat on the couch with Julian and finally said it out loud. "I think I want to go back to Charleston." He didn't flinch. "To your parents. To show them what they threw away." Julian nodded. "Do it. But do it for you, not for them." I looked over at our sleeping daughter, and I knew he was right. Starting Novametrics in a borrowed garage was never part of my dream big vision board. But I didn't care about aesthetics. I cared about building something that mattered. Julian's cousin had a two-car garage in Columbia he wasn't using. So we cleaned it out, set up 3 folding tables, 2 refurbished MacBooks, and a whiteboard stolen from Tasha's old community college. Boom, headquarters. The early days were a blur of Red Bull, burrito wrappers, and code that looked like Frankenstein's monster. We weren't polished. We weren't scalable, but we were alive. Novametrics was never meant to be cool. We weren't trying to disrupt the universe. We just wanted to help small clinics do more with less. No more lost appointments, no more misplaced charts, no more patients waiting 2 hours for a flu shot. We gave them data, clean, visual, and actionable. And at first, No one cared. We emailed 97 clinics in our first outreach campaign, got 3 responses. 1 turned into a call, 0 turned into a client. We ran out of coffee. Then we ran out of hope. I think we need to pivot, I told Tasha one night, or at least polish our pitch deck so it stops looking like it was made on Microsoft Paint. She laughed through her tears. Let's do both. So we did. We started showing up. Literally. I'd drive to clinics with homemade cupcakes and demo the platform on my tablet. Tasha followed up with calls. Julian tightened the code to the point that even dial-up internet could handle our interface. We got 1 client, then 2. The 3rd was a rural women's clinic in Alabama that hadn't updated its system since 2004. I sat with the director, a woman named Marlene, for 3 hours. Just listening. At the end, she said, "You care, that's rare. We'll try it." We comped them the first month. By month 2, they doubled their patient turnover. Month 3, they paid, and referred us to 4 other clinics. Marlene called me a month later and said, "Y'all saved us." Not metaphorically. Literally, we were 2 months from shutting down. That call changed everything. Word of mouth is slow magic, but when it hits. We grew. Not explosively but steadily. Our client list stretched across 5 states. We hired a support specialist. Then another developer. I gave Denise her 10% stake for her early investment, and she responded with a bottle of champagne and a sticky note that said, "Told you." But growth brought pressure. I started waking up at 3 a.m. in a panic, thinking about burn rates and server uptime, and whether I was a fraud in CEO clothing. Julian always found me on the couch, scrolling through spreadsheets. "Your brain never sleeps," he'd whisper, pulling the blanket over me. "But your body needs to." Still, I kept pushing. We got featured in a local tech blog, then on a national podcast. An angel funder cold emailed me after hearing our story and asked if we needed capital. I didn't even think twice. "No," I replied. "I need freedom." Not a board breathing down my neck. Tasha and I rewrote our user agreement. Julian built an internal dashboard that tracked every metric in real time. We bootstrapped and stayed in the black. No outside money, no handouts. And then came the email from the office of the governor. They'd seen our work. Wanted to partner for a statewide rural health initiative. I stared at the screen, rerating it 5 times before calling Tasha. "We made it," I whispered. She screamed so loud I dropped the phone. We signed the deal, hired 5 new people, moved into an actual office with a real lobby and glass doors. I stood in that empty space the first night, holding Nora in my arms, whispering, "This is all for you," as she cooed and grabbed my necklace. I smiled through tears, and then, like life loves to do, it got messy again. Nora got sick. Nothing serious, but enough to remind me that being a CEO and a mom isn't a balancing act, it's a battlefield. One night, I missed a pitch call because she had a 103 fever. Another time, she started crying in the middle of a video interview and I had to excuse myself. People noticed. Some didn't care. Some did. I got emails that said, "Is your company stable with you dividing time like this?" Or, "Maybe this is too ambitious with a toddler." But Denise shut that down quickly. "If you were a man, they'd call you a visionary dad," she growled. "Let him talk. Then make regret it." Julian built a playpen inside my office. My team took shifts babysitting when I had calls. We became a family, not just a company. That's when I knew we were doing something rare, something sacred, not just building tech, but building culture. Still, something lingered in the back of my mind, a silence that grew heavier with each milestone. My parents. I didn't miss their control, or their disappointment, but I wondered if they knew, if they ever Googled me, if they ever told people. "That's our daughter?" Julian asked one night. "Do you want them to know?" I hesitated. "I want them to see who I became without them." He nodded. "Then take the jet." We laughed at first, but then I realized he was serious. Our growth justified it. We were expanding into the southeast, setting up a second hub in Charleston. The jet was a business write-off, but it was more than that. It was symbolic. A declaration. I scheduled the trip, told Tasha to handle things while I was gone, packed Nora's favorite dress, and booked a suite at the same hotel my mother used to host her charity galas in. As we boarded the jet, Nora clapped in excitement. "We're flying on our own airplane, Mommy." I smiled. That's right, baby. And we're going home. She asked, what's home? And I realized, it wasn't Charleston. It wasn't a house. It wasn't people who couldn't love you without conditions. It was us. Me and her. Julian never needed me to shrink. That's how I knew he was different from every man my mother ever pushed toward me. He didn't ask me to change, compromise, or accommodate his ego. He didn't just admire my ambition. He celebrated it. We met through work, sure. But we connected through our philosophies. I remember one night during a product feedback session, we ended up talking for hours about legacy. About what we were building and why. He said, anyone can make money. But building something that outlives you, that's rare. I stared at him, surprised. You think that deep on a Tuesday night? He grinned. Only with people worth staying late for. That's how it started. We weren't flashy. There was no big declaration or whirlwind. Just slow, steady unfolding. Julian would bring me lunch when I forgot to eat. He'd watch Nora while I pitched investors or prepped for launch events. He understood that my time wasn't a threat, it was an asset. One night, he saw me panic over a product bug before a major rollout. I was spiraling, mumbling code fixes under my breath. He gently closed my laptop. Take a breath, it'll still be there in 5 minutes. But your body won't wait forever. I blinked. I'm not used to people noticing that. He looked at me like it was the most obvious thing in the world. You deserve to be seen. We didn't move in together right away. I was cautious. So was he. We had wounds. His from a childhood marked by instability, mine from a home that confused control with love. But over time, our lives began to intertwine naturally. He left his apartment key on my desk with a sticky note. No pressure. Just options. He kept snacks in his pantry that only Nora ate. He rearranged his schedule so he could do daycare pickups on my late nights. And one day, while we were folding laundry, he said, I want to build something with you. Not just software, a life. I turned, holding a tiny sock, and nodded. Me too. When Nora was 3, we moved into a house with a backyard. Nothing fancy, just enough room for her to run, and for us to breathe. Julian built her a sandbox. I turned the garage into a tiny home office. We set boundaries, took turns, and learned to fight fair. But what made Julian truly different? He listened. When I had a breakdown one night about feeling like I wasn't doing enough, as a mom, a CEO, a woman, he didn't try to fix it. He just said, you're allowed to feel that, but I see you, and I'm proud of you. That night I cried harder than I had in years, not from pain, from relief. He proposed on a rainy Sunday afternoon. We'd just gotten back from grocery shopping. Nora was napping, and the kitchen smelled like roasted garlic. He slid a simple gold band across the counter and said, no speeches. No pressure, just yes if you want. I said yes. We married in our backyard with 20 friends. Nora tossing flower petals from a little basket. Denise officiated, of course, wearing a blazer and sneakers. You built this, she told me before the ceremony. Every bit of it. Don't forget that. Marriage didn't change our dynamic. If anything, it made it stronger. We still fought over laundry, still argued about UX choices, but now we had a shared last name and a shared vision. Nova metrics exploded that year. We closed a Series A, launched 2 new products, got featured in TechCrunch. Julian built a new platform of his own, focused on mental health access for low-income communities. We cheered each other on, raised Nora in the cracks of chaos, and never stopped believing in what we were building. But even in all that joy, there was an ache. One I didn't talk about. My parents had never met Nora. They didn't know she loved dinosaurs, or that she talked in her sleep, or that she called any ice cream flavor pink, even if it was chocolate. They didn't know I was married, or successful, or healed, because I hadn't told them, because I didn't know if they deserved to know. Until one night, after Nora asked for the 3rd time why she didn't have grandmom and grandpop. Like her friends, I looked at Julian and whispered, maybe it's time. He nodded. Whatever you decide, I've got you. So I decided. We booked the jet, packed light, and flew into Charleston without calling ahead. As the plane descended, I felt the weight of 1,000 memories press against my chest. The driveway where I was told to leave. The porch where I cried alone in the rain. The people who turned their backs. But I also felt something else. Power. Because this time I wasn't coming back empty-handed. I had Nora's hand in mine, Julian's unwavering support, and a company that bore my name and my fingerprints. I didn't want revenge. I wanted resolution. As we pulled up to my childhood home, a little faded, but still imposing, I saw my father in the front yard, watering wilted hydrangeas. He looked up, stared, and for the first time in over a decade, he whispered, "Charlotte." Behind him, my mother stepped out, still elegant, still composed, but her hand trembled when she saw Nora. "Mom," I said, my voice even. "This is your granddaughter." Nora didn't just arrive into my life, she rewrote it. I remember holding her for the first time in that delivery room, sweat, drenched and shaking, staring into those big, storm-gray eyes that looked nothing like mine, and yet, I saw myself in her. Not the broken girl I used to be, but the woman I had fought to become. Her cry was loud, commanding, like she already knew the world wouldn't hand her anything, and she was prepared to take it anyway. In that moment, I made a silent vow. She would never feel what I felt. She would never wonder if love came with strings. She would never have to earn my approval. She was enough the moment she arrived. Motherhood was terrifying. Between 2 a.m. feedings, bleeding bank accounts, and never-ending responsibilities, I questioned myself constantly. I read parenting blogs at midnight, watched videos about discipline, emotional intelligence, attachment theory, but in the quiet moments, rocking her to sleep, brushing her hair, watching her eyes follow the shadows on the wall, I realized something. I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to be present. I chose softness where my mother chose shame. I chose questions where my father chose silence. I chose grace where they chose rules. And every day, I reminded Nora, "You get to decide who you are." We made our own traditions. Saturday pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. Tuesday night dance parties in the kitchen. Every birthday, I wrote her a letter, telling her the ways she'd grown, what I'd learned from her, and how proud I was just to be her mom. Julian was right there beside me, changing diapers, reading bedtime stories, whispering to her in Vietnamese so she'd grow up bilingual. He never once called it helping. He called it parenting. When Nora was 4, she came home from preschool with glitter in her hair and asked, "Mommy, why don't I have grandparents like Zoe?" I froze. It was the question I had feared and knew was inevitable. I knelt beside her, brushing the glitter from her curls. "You have Grandma Denise," I said softly, "but Zoe has 2. One with gray hair and one who brings cookies." Her voice was so gentle, so curious. Not angry, just wondering. I smiled through the lump in my throat. "We'll talk about that soon, okay?" That night, I stared at the ceiling long after Nora fell asleep. My heart thudded with old ache, old silence, old ghosts. I wasn't ready to explain the past, but I also wasn't ready to let it define her future. Maybe it was time to reopen the door I'd slammed shut. Not for them, but for her. The next morning, I looked at Julian across the breakfast table and said, "Let's go to Charleston." He nodded. No questions, no hesitation, because he knew this wasn't about forgiveness. It was about freedom. And the promise I made to my daughter the day she was born. The door opened slower than I expected. I stood on the porch I once fled barefoot in the rain, now in tailored heels and holding Nora's hand. The same wind that once chilled my bones now fluttered the hem of my blazer. My father stood in the doorway, his face older, thinner, but instantly familiar. His mouth parted, eyes wide, like he was seeing a ghost. "Charlotte," he whispered. Nora peeked from behind my leg, her voice small but curious. "Is that Grandpa?" His eyes darted to her, and something inside him broke. His knees buckled slightly, and for the first time in my life, I saw my father, not the judge, not the silent enforcer, the man. My mother appeared a moment later, still poised, pearls at her neck, but her hand trembled as she grabbed the doorframe. Her breath caught when she saw Nora. I didn't say anything poetic. No speech. No, "I told you so." Just, "This is Nora. She's 5. She likes dinosaurs, glitter, and blueberry pancakes." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then my mother stepped forward, eyes glistening. "She's beautiful." Nora held out her tiny hand. "Hi." My father crouched to meet her eye level. "Hi, sweetheart." I'm your grandpa." The word caught in his throat, like it wasn't real until he said it. "They invited us in. The house hadn't changed. Same beige carpet, same chandelier. But the air was different. Thicker, fragile. The living room held echoes of lectures and punishments, but now Nora filled it with questions. Is that mommy in that picture? Why is that chair so big? Can I sit here? I let them watch her, let them see what they'd missed. No rage, no guilt trip. Just quiet evidence. My mother brought out lemonade and cookies like nothing had happened. My father showed Nora an old globe and pointed to where dinosaurs once roamed. For a moment, it felt normal. Then she asked, "Why haven't you met me before?" Silence. I met my mother's eyes. And for once, she didn't deflect. "We made some mistakes," she said. "Big ones." Nora nodded thoughtfully, like that was enough, for now. Later, as we left, my mother walked us to the car. She touched my arm, gentle. "Thank you for coming." I paused. "I didn't do it for you." She nodded. "I know." I buckled Nora into her car seat, kissed her forehead, then turned back. "But I am open to trying." My mother didn't cry. She simply whispered, "So am I, and maybe, for the first time, that was enough." Forgiveness didn't come all at once. It wasn't a dramatic hug or a teary monologue. It came slowly, through awkward dinners, through guarded conversations, through watching my mother learn how to braid Nora's hair, wrong, then right, through my father showing up to Nora's kindergarten recital, sitting quietly in the back. It came in pieces. And some pieces never fully returned. I didn't forget what they did. I didn't excuse the slap, the silence, the exile. But I chose not to carry the weight of it anymore. Because I realized, forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about setting yourself free. I wasn't the girl on that rainy porch anymore. I was a mother, a wife, a founder, a woman who rebuilt her life from broken pieces and called it beautiful. And when Nora asked, "Are Grandma and Grandpa good now?" I said, "They're trying." And sometimes, trying matters. Because that's what I wanted her to remember. That healing is messy. That boundaries can coexist with love. That you are allowed to rewrite your story. So if you're watching this and wondering if you should go back or stay gone, ask yourself, are you at peace? Not them. You. That's all that ever mattered. Your life, your terms, and that's a freedom no one can take from you again. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment below. Share your own moment of breaking free, or the one you're still fighting toward. And if you believe that healing isn't weakness but power, hit that like button and subscribe. Because the world needs more stories like yours.